Well, that's the figure that I threw out a few months ago, and people kind of made fun of that, thought that was way too high.
I don't. I'd give him 800.
If I had to do one or the other, I'd still probably take the under, but I can't say he's not worth it. I mean, just look at the fact that, a great pitcher like Garrett Cole got 324. Great hitters often get 300. Certainly Trey Turner, but other hitters have gotten 300. So that's add them up, and that's 600 right there, and gives you marketing as well. So I don't think 600 is unrealistic at all. If he's willing to go to the Mets, I bet he gets the 600. That'd be my guess. And again, that's a bet in a figurative way. I'm not actually betting, but I bet he would be able to get 600 somewhere. I think ultimately, if I had a guess, I'm going to say he gets about that, and I'm going to say he gets 575 today. Yeah, I would agree. The season is a disaster. It is interesting to think back of 1995 when they were under 500. Late in the season, they did make the playoffs in 95. That will not happen this year, even with the extra playoff teams. They are really terrible right now. I think they're actually worse than the Mets and may finish with a worse record than the Mets. Look, the Yankees have been a very static team, shall we say. With the owner, Hal Steinbrenner, he's running basically the opposite of his dad, the boss, George Steinbrenner, who I think had something like 20 pitching coaches in 18 years, something like that. The Yankees finally did let go a coach, which in season, which they had never done in the Brian Cashman era, which is now in his 26th season. So, they obviously see things that are wrong right now. And look, Cashman has 3 more years to go on his contract. I don't foresee any change there. He did win the World Series 4 times as a general manager. This likely will be his first losing season, assuming they continue the trend that's going now. At this moment now, I for the first time this year, I'm starting to wonder about Boone, though. Cashman has been in his corner 100%. I assume Cashman is still in his corner, but at this point, I would say that is a question to answer. Is Aaron Boone going to be back? Cashman, not really a question. He certainly will be back.
Oh, John, I can't ask you. Sorry, T.
Oh, I was just going to quick follow up. In your opinion, John, do you think that this is something that is Boone's to blame, or are some of the moves that were and were not made with this roster something that we should blame on Cashman?
Yeah, I think Cashman is clearly in a slump. He's had a great career. I think he's a Hall of Famer. If you look at the most recent big moves over the last 2-3 years, they generally have not worked. The trade with Minnesota, although IKF is a fine utility player, that trade is a disaster. The Gallo trade, that was a disaster. The Montas trade, that was a disaster. The extensions for Severino and Hicks, they're at least mistakes at the very least. So, he clearly is in a slump. I do think the general manager is more responsible for the outcome of the season than the manager in almost every single case. So, I would say that Cashman is more to blame than Boone. I'm just speaking realistically. Cashman's got a long track record. He's got a longer contract, and I don't foresee any change there. The manager is a more tenuous position generally, and Boone does not have world championships on his record. So that's why I think there is some question there. I wouldn't say it's an overwhelming question at the moment, but some question about Boone, whereas Cashman is safe, although he's really the bigger culprit for the season. Well, I know that when they were in Detroit, they didn't get along, and they haven't pretended otherwise. And as Verlander said, they were young guys trying to make their way. But I think, they were together for a while and didn't get along. And it was probably hard to overcome that. They did not seem close in the Mets clubhouse. They are different types. I could see somebody was quoted saying that Verlander's a diva. To me, he's like another superstar player. We've had a lot of superstar players. Scherzer's an unusual superstar player who acts like a regular guy and is always palling around and giving advice to the young guys. But to me, many of the superstar players are like Verlander, and I don't see anything wrong with it. I mean, he's on a different level. He's already a Hall of Fame player and one of the greatest pitchers of all time, and he wasn't impolite to anybody, and I suspect that his criticisms were probably constructive or trying to be constructive. So I don't see it as a negative. I didn't expect them to be any different. You know, we've had a lot of superstars come through New York, and you know, it's a different life. You know, if you're that good, it's different. Scherzer has actually been better in Texas. The Mets, he was more up and down. Verlander was the better pitcher of the two when he was healthy. But you know, they're both on their way to the Hall of Fame. They've had very comparable careers. They're just different people, and it's not surprising that they weren't fast friends when they were in New York. I don't think it was you know, a volatile situation. It was more, let's say, a Cold War or something like that. They weren't close. So, you know, I mean, is the clubhouse the reason they were so bad and underachieved this year as a team? Or, you know, did it get bad because they underachieved? I'm not sure. It is shocking how poor the team performed with a $360 million payroll. I mean, nobody could have, again, my predictions were bad. Nobody could have predicted this for the Mets.
Weaknesses for the top contenders, and when we say contenders, you can put it a little bit in quotes, because for the Saints, it's their age. They're an old team. They're 40-1 to win the Super Bowl. So when we say contender, you're probably going to put them as a playoff team. They're minus 185 to make the playoffs. Win totals at 9.5. Favorites to win their division. We'll probably go as far as that. I might be higher on the Saints than you guys, only because I think Derek Carr brings just that stability to that offense. So I think if you're going to look across this roster, that's one of the weaknesses. I'd also argue that receiver, besides Chris Olave, may still be a question mark for them too. But Derek Carr is still an upgrade for them. If you look, though, they had 10 players who were 30 or older play at least 300 snaps last year, with the oldest roster in the NFL. And they have 32-year-old Derek Carr now, and they haven't really reloaded in the draft with young talent. Chris Olave is the one really good guy that they've got since like years ago when they had a good draft in like 2017, and everybody loved it, like the Jets draft that we just had. The veterans have to stay healthy for the Saints, and they've got to play at a high level. It's just that simple. If they do that, they win the division and they get to the playoffs. But if not, or they have injuries, and you get to that point, the Saints are going to be a team, if they start dealing with injuries, that can fall very, very quickly, because Derek Carr is a good quarterback, but he's not Tom Brady. He's not going to elevate everybody to the point where they can overcome a massive amounts of injuries because everybody's old. So